decent VR racing games are few and far between, at least outside of the PC environment. Actually, even the Quest 2's Grid Legends VR is pretty poor, so really, the only decent alternative to buying a PC VR setup is Drive Club VR on the original PSVR. Or at least it was. But now we have the PSVR 2, and with it comes a fully fledged sim racer that can be played completely within the headset, and yes, that's Gran Turismo 7. Unlike GT Sport on PS4, which had a very poxy PSVR mode, a single race against a single AI driver, GT7 lets players enjoy the entirety of the game in VR. This is not an extra mode that has been tacked on as an afterthought, it's the real deal. The single player campaign, custom races, and multiplayer are all available for PSVR 2 players. The only content cutback is split screen, which is understandable and, for the majority, not a big deal. For most watching this review, you'll already know what GT7 is all about, but for those who are taking their first plunge into Polyphony's intricately detailed world of racing, it's important to know what you're getting into. This is not an arcade game, and you won't be throwing big dirty drifts around every corner. It's a simulation, it's aiming to recreate the real experience, and that means you're grounded in what's possible, and not what looks cool in a fancy trailer. For the record, I've never been a sim racer. I've always leaned more towards the arcadey pick up and play experiences, like Drive Club or the Forza Horizon series, so for me, going into GT7 was a learning curve, and if your racing game history is similar to mine, you'll have to go on that path too. Thankfully, GT7 offers a very in-depth set of tutorials in the form of driving license lessons. They're handy and even required to get to the later stages of the game, as certain race types require different licenses. There's also a robust set of in-game assists, such as visible driving lines to help guide you through the brilliantly rendered tracks, and stop markers to tell you when you should be hitting the brakes. It's all there if you need it, and if you're coming in green, I would definitely recommend tinkering with some of the assists. Getting set up is a doddle and takes no effort at all, though I was initially a little bit confused. As I booted the game up and rushed into my first race, the menus were presented on a flat floating screen in front of me, and even when the game transitioned to the in-race countdown, it was still flat screen. But just before the race began, I was thrown inside the cockpit and my addiction to GT7 began. You don't need to enable VR mode, you just stick the headset on and you're in. Simple stuff, and for me simplicity is always appreciated. Control options are limited, and those fancy Sense controllers don't get any love here. They're not compatible with the game, so you won't be flipping off opponents, sadly. Instead, you can use the DualSense controller in the traditional manner, with the left stick controlling the steering and the triggers for acceleration and braking. Or if you want to feel a bit more involved, without shelling out even more money for a decent racing wheel, you can use the DualSense's motion controls. This has been my method and it works really well, even if my arms do tend to get a bit tired after a while. I'd still recommend it over using the sticks, just for that added level of immersion that us VR players are always chasing. Gameplay wise, what is there to say that hasn't already been said? It's Gran Turismo, but in VR. The VR implementation though is brilliant, and while it's not quite as sharp as I expected it to be, and that's the pitfalls of watching YouTube videos I suppose, it's still a massive improvement over any other VR racer that I've played. The visuals are great and don't feel like they've been downgraded. You're still getting a comparable experience to the non-VR version. Being stuck in the cockpit view, because there's no third-person view here, you're invited to scrutinise every little detail, which I did, and I couldn't find anything that stuck out as wrong. The interiors are fantastically realised, from the fabric of the seats to the textured dashboards. It all looks as my brain expects it to. Even the speedometers are more lifelike than I thought they would be. Racing on a bright and sunny track, I was momentarily distracted by the glare of the sun off the speedometer's casing. I got annoyed, I was blinded, and then I got excited because real life annoyances were creeping into VR. How about that? The visuals really do help sell the experience. Whether it's the headlights pouring in from the car behind you, dazzling the rear view mirror, or the rain pattering down on the windshield, reducing visibility and forcing you into a more careful approach, everything has been considered, and for the most part, implemented very, very well. A minor complaint would be reflections on cars running at an obviously lower frame rate, though in the heat of the moment when I'm gunning it down the last stretch, neck and neck with another racer, doesn't really matter. The mirrors also are a bit off. They function, but they act almost like mini screens, showing you what's behind or to the side, rather than being accurate reflections. A small compromise, and one that's easy to get over. Hitting the tracks in the various races and championships throughout the campaign, I was always looking forward to what was to come next. Where would the game send me? What car would I be throwing around the track? Would I manage another clean race and get those extra bonus credits I've been saving to buy me a big, sexy supercar? It was all too easy for me to get lost inside GT7. I'd tell myself, okay, I'll play a couple of tracks and then I'll do some housework. An hour later, the dishes are still stinking, but I've taken pole position in a handful of championships and my credit account is growing. It's dangerous, I tell you, but great fun all the same, and unlike in Drive Club VR, I rarely got any kind of motion sickness. My first time in Drive Club VR, I chucked my guts up into my lap. I've had no such problem with GT7, whether that's because of the sharper, more realistic visuals and the smoother performance, or just my acclimation to VR, I'm not sure. Though I did have one minor belly flip when an opponent gave me a nasty nudge from behind that sent me in a 360 spin. I had to take a moment to compose myself, but I didn't see my lunch again, so all good. If you're a VR veteran, you should be alright on that front. If you're a newbie, take it slow and keep a bucket beside you just in case, because once you start moving through the campaign, unlocking faster cars and driving in more treacherous conditions, high-speed tracks on a rainy day can be a mess, the likelihood of veering out of control increases. For racing fans, GT7 offers plenty. You can race through the single-player campaign, collecting cars and credits. You can tweak and tune your vehicles to your heart's content, and sometimes it's even necessary to progress. And you can gawp over the luxurious motors in the VR showroom. I'm not really a car person. I don't gawp over cars in real life, yet I found the VR showroom to be impressive, but maybe I was just impressed by the technology strapped to my face as I wondered how it could be doing what it was doing, and where it might go in the future. There's multiplayer too for those that want it, and I've dabbled in it, and I'm sure I'll spend a lot more time there in the future. You've got your own single races too, where you can set up your own conditions and race how you like. There's even a rally mode for those brave enough to tackle it. Basically, there's more than enough here to keep you busy for a long, long time. GT7 on PSVR 2 is an exceptional game, but also a showcase for what can be done when developers work closely with the hardware. An advantage that first-party studio Polyphony no doubt had. I would not say it's a reason to run out and grab a headset, they are very expensive after all, but if you've got a headset already, this is a reason to run out and grab a copy of Gran Turismo 7. And that is the end of this review. Thank you very much for watching, as always. If you enjoyed this video and found it useful, please do us a solid. Go on down below, hit the like and subscribe buttons, and give the bell icon a ding so that you get notified whenever we've got new stuff. And we will have plenty more PSVR 2 stuff in the near future, as well as, the normal stuff. Anyway, I've been Chris, you've been gorgeous, and I'll see you on the next one. Until then, cheers my dears.